going on, chickens? G-Sync Greg here, ready to show you a new setup here on Ascent. We're going to go ahead and show off Viper setups here. We're going to show off a wonderful setup over on A with a couple of different orb placements. And then we're going to go ahead and mosey our way over towards B to show you some wonderful setups over there. Overall, we are going to be checking out Viper's defense setups here today. Stick around for another video sometime in the near future for her attack setups if you want. But let's go ahead and check out A site. Taking a look at A site right here on Ascent, we are only going to have one wall setup right here, but a few other orb setups. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and make sure that you have your wall lined up right there with the corner left side of the box. Then you throw it. Once you've gone ahead and thrown this wall and activated it, the enemy is going to see this very wonky wall that will be very good for hiding you and your teammates. So they'll have to cross there, then they'll have to cross again right here, and then they'll have to cross a third time right here just to get onto site. Conversely, if the enemy decides to try to go ahead and step on Biggie Cheese right here and put themselves on the wall, they will have no luck with that whatsoever. As you can see, the Viper wall is pushing that completely. And from your point of view as Viper or one of your teammates, you will go ahead and see them pop their head out right around there. It is a very good angle for you to go ahead and hold if you want to be a bit aggressive here on A site. But overall, this wall will help you make sure that the enemy is a bit confused when they push in. They have to cross 3 separate times on this wall in order for them to even make it onto site. So that'll help you and your enemy, that'll help you and your teammates make sure the enemy falls to ashes. And checking out one of the first poison orb locations for our setup here on A, we're going to want to go ahead and line ourselves up with this little sewer grate right there. Then you're going to want to go ahead and position your crosshair right there, just under that. Jump and right click that and it'll pop right there. Altogether, when you stand on site and have this set up with that poison orb right here, you are going to go ahead and see this. It is a very wonderful setup that locks down the entirety of site just for you and your team. If you are an enemy who has enough brain worms to go ahead and push up catwalk into this poison orb, it is a wonderful one way for you if you want to go ahead and position yourself right here in tree, or excuse me, behind tree. You can go ahead and just barely see a little bit of their feet, and you can obviously hear them a lot if they decide to go fast. So as the enemy pushes in, they are very blinded. They will have to throw out a blind themselves, so just be aware of that. But if you start to see their feet or you start to hear some movement, you can just pretty much go ahead and spray away. Another alternative poison orb placement is going to be right around here. What you're going to want to do is position yourself somewhere right around here next to this little cord if you want to give yourself a bit of an idea of where to position yourself. And then for your crosshair, you're going to want to go ahead and position it right there to where it is in line with that little edge of the fan. Then you're just going to want to simply left click. Then you're just going to want to simply left click. And right there, it'll go ahead and squeeze it in between those two thick thighs of a fan right about there. Now, when using this poison orb, you might want to decide to go ahead and throw your wall maybe towards mid, maybe towards catwalk to make sure you don't completely leave that open. But if you have a teammate somewhere around garden, then you should be fine. And even if you don't, as long as you position yourself in a place where they can't see you at the same time as the people from A main, you should be more than good. And for this orb right here, you can go ahead and position yourself either right here in this corner, or if you did want to be a bit risky, you can go ahead and position yourself in garden right here. Again, be aware of the enemies pushing catwalk, but other than that, you'll just want to go ahead and pop your wall, pop your orb. And honestly, if you really feel like it and want to have one of your teammates position themselves right about there, this is a wonderful crossfire because your teammate will be up there. They'll have to move their crosshair up for that. They'll be affected by your poison orb. They'll be affected by your wall. If you want to go ahead and throw a little stingy boy, you can do that. There are multitude of utilities here for you and your team to secure this site very easily. And as the enemy team coming in, you are just going to be thrown 17 different ways from heaven. You're going to push in from this after going through 17 different screens. Then you're going to be into the orb. Then you're going to be confused about who's shooting you from there. All the while, someone's going to be shooting you from there. Someone might even be shooting you from there, or from there, or from there, or from there. There are just a million different places for you to go ahead and clap the enemy team all the way back to cheese. Finally, for a site on Ascension, our last poison orb is going to be one positioned towards tree right here. Now again, let's say the enemy team starts to catch on to what you're doing here main, and they start to all push through tree and through catwalk, and you just get absolutely decimated. This poison orb will help you very, very greatly with that. You're going to want to go ahead and put yourself right next to this good old pipe right here. Pull out your poison orb. Make sure you have your cursor lined up right about there. And then you just go ahead and left click. Position it right there. Now, when it comes to holding a position with this third poison orb placement, you're going to want to go ahead and throw yourself either by generator if you want to peek more towards main, or towards green box right here if you want to have a bit more of a split peek you can have. When you go ahead and throw up your orb and your wall, this is what you're going to see. Very, very wonderful. You'll be able to start to see them walk in right there. Then you'll just go ahead and start to fire. You may hear them over there. You can fire right there. Make sure you are keeping an eye on where the enemy team is pushing from at all times. And overall, these setups for Viper on A for Ascent are some of the must-knows if you want to go ahead and climb the ranks. Now, with that being said, what happens if you want to go ahead and set up on B? Fishing our way over to B, one thing you are going to want to make sure that you know when you hold B as Viper, you are mainly going to be using your wall to hold mid and block off the majority of mid for your teammates that theoretically should be positioning themselves somewhere around here and somewhere around mid cubby. In order to set up our Viper wall for mid right here, we're going to want to go ahead and slap our fat cock onto this metal plate right here. And then from there, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure your Viper wall is lined up precisely with the right side of this box. Then you're just going to go ahead and chuck. This is what that wall will look like up mid. As I said, making sure you have a teammate somewhere around right here and another teammate somewhere around over there. This will be a very, very wonderful wall for them. It'll make sure that they can precisely see if the enemy team is coming from there or from there if they decide to come through mid at all. And the enemy team will be pretty much useless mid. They will not have much of a choice to go mid unless they decide to all push mid. But in a smart, sensible game, the enemy team will have no choice but to push one of the sites. Now, when it comes to actually defending the B main of the B site of the B side of this map of Ascent, you're going to want to go ahead and set up your first poison orb that we're going to take a look at, like so. You're going to want to go ahead and position yourself in this little corner crevice right here. And then from there, you're going to want to make sure you have your cursor lined up just about center of this little edge of that sign, and then just a simple left click. Plop it right there. And if you are the teammate who is ending up holding mid to your wall right there, and you don't start to see anyone, but you start to hear your teammate on B call for B push, pop your poison orb right there, and it is a very, very wonderful orb, because even if they decide to push past your wall, they now have to deal with the orb. The enemies, if they decide to push in through B main, are going to see something a little bit like this. They're going to see your wall up, they might start to see your orb up, so they push the wall, then they're just as confused on where you're at with this orb placed right there. They decide to push in, and they still do not know where you are. That gives you a ton of positions for you to go ahead and hold. Like I said, if you did want to hold mid, you can go ahead and hold right here somewhere and mark it. If you wanted to go ahead and be a little bit more passive, you can maybe hold somewhere right here. You won't be able to see mid, but you will have a pretty decent view on your Viper orb right there. And then if you wanted to be a little bit more aggressive, depending on how aggressive they're playing at, you can go ahead and position yourself on sidewalk. This, in my opinion, is the best position for this orb right here, because you go ahead and pop that orb right there. They start to come in, and you put yourself on this part of the stairs where it's a little bit up. When you do just that, even if you were on the stairs, or excuse me, the sidewalk below the stairs, the enemy still has no view of you whatsoever. Maybe when you start to shoot, they'll obviously start to randomly spray and pray, but assuming you can get your shots hit, this is a very, very wonderful position for this very, very wonderful orb. If you decide you want to play a little bit more towards mid than B, or you just want a bit more mid control because your wall isn't doing enough to go ahead and control it from the enemy team, you can go ahead and set up this secondary poison orb right here. If you want to go ahead and position yourself in this corner right here, it's all about corners. Make sure you position yourself right there. And then this one is a bit tricky. It's going to take probably a couple of times for you to do it, but you're going to want to make sure that you have your cursor lined up right there in between all those bricks. And then it is a simple left click right there. Using this orb to your advantage when you are positioned right here towards mid, you go ahead and pop that. You go ahead and pop your wall. Wall might not even be necessary. You might, if you want, throw it somewhere else. But if you are looking for 100% mid control, you are going to need both your wall and your orb like so. The only downside to this setup, however, is that if you are looking right around here, you will not be able to see people who are around mid top. So as always, just make sure that you know where your teammates are. If you have a teammate watching mid cubby or even all the way towards mid catwalk, that might be a little bit better for you. But if you do not, make sure to always be aware that there could be an enemy mid-top. However, when it comes to the enemies deciding to push from tiles right here into your orb and your wall, it is a very, very bad news bears for them. They'll still have to pass through your wall, making sure that they don't have a teammate, or excuse me, one of your teammates there. And then from there, there is zero view at all whatsoever from this orb. It is a very, very wonderful orb setup for mid. And overall, just make sure that this vast amount of mid is a little bit more controlled by you and your team. With that, it is going to be our final setup here on Ascent for Viper. Thank you guys so very much for checking out the video today. I appreciate it so very much. You guys are constantly typing comments and giving me very, very nice words of support. And hopefully, these setups are helping you in your games, whether you're an Iron or whether you're an Immortal. I hope these are a bit of a more helpful solution to you. Again, make sure to let me know if you thought there was a Viper setup that I didn't use that was a very, very good one. Let me know if there is one that you really enjoy that ended up helping you out in a game. Let me know if you, the viewer, would like to see any other agents or anything else. And as always, make sure to check out any of the other videos for the other agents that we have. And I will make sure to see you guys in the next one.